As the Florida Highwaymen gained recognition in the 90s and 2000s and the movement became a real thing, you had not met, you were just meeting him. You were just getting to know who this person was.
Right.
How did that affect you? Was there a renewed interest in his work? Did he have a renewed interest in painting, or was he really still focused on the ministry? And how did all that blend together?
He was still focused on the ministry, and what happened, we came down in 2005 to do a tent revival in Fort Pierce on Juanita Avenue, and it was right behind the bar that his brother-in-law owned. His brother-in-law owned JB's, and it was a big lot there, so we put the tent there. And so once he put the tent up, and he had a sign out there, we were just sitting there because we would go in the daytime and we'll go out there and pray and different things. And Mary Ann came with Jim Fitch.
Jim Fitch, yeah.
Yeah. And he had this painting. And he said, "Excuse me, are you Pete?" He said, "Who's asking?" Like that. And he looks around and he said, "I don't go by Pete anymore." He said, "My name is Pastor Carnell Smith," like that. And Mary Ann came about. She came, and it was so funny. He said, "Do you know everybody's looking for you? Do you know that you're famous?" He said, "Famous? What do you mean famous?" He said, "The Highwaymen got inducted into the Hall of Fame." "Highwaymen? What are you talking about?" He said, "Wasn't you one of those guys that painted with afro hair and stuff?" He said, "Yeah." He said, "I got something to show you." He went to his truck and pulled out this huge painting, and I tell you, it was about this big. Yeah, it was really big. He said, "Do you remember painting this?" He said, "Where did you get that from?" He said, "That's one of my early first paintings," like that. He said, "Oh, I got it over on the West Coast, and I bought it from someone." And he said, "You know what?" He said, "People are calling you the lost highwayman." And he said, "I need you to paint some paintings for me." Because he said, "Everybody wants your paintings." He said, "I don't do that anymore." He said, "I'm a preacher."
Yeah, he was like the missing, he was the prodigal son of highwaymen.
Yeah,
He really was.
So,
he ran away from the movement. He really did.
Because we was living up in, at that time, we was living in Jersey, you know, but Philly and Jersey, when you say Jersey, they say,
Were you in Haddon
Philly,
Heights, I think, right?
Cherry Hill.
You were in Cherry Hill.
Yeah, Cherry Hill.
Okay, yeah.
And so, anyway, he said, "I'll pay you anything. I need you to paint some paintings for me." He said, "Listen, I didn't come down here to paint." He said, "I don't have no canvas. I don't have no material. I don't have no brushes. I don't have anything." And Mary Ann said, "Pete, my house is right down the street. You can come down there, and I got all the material. You don't worry about anything. I got all the supplies you would need. Just come and paint because people want your paintings." And so what he would do, he would paint in the daytime, and then at night he would preach. And it was like, I say, "Honey, when are you going to get some rest?" He said, "Right now these people are coming from everywhere and they just want paintings." And they said they'll give me anything. And he said, "Right now we're trying to get this tent revival going. And we need some money." And he said, "I got to do it. And I tell you, during that meeting, because I think we were there almost 2 weeks, he must have painted over 50 paintings or more, because everybody that was coming, they wanted 5, 10 paintings. And then we got a chance to meet Harold Artling, and he gave my husband a show. He said, "Since you're the Lost Highwayman, let me give you a show." He said, "What I want to do," he said, "once you go back home and come back, we'll set up something, and I want to give you a show, and I want you to just paint. Just want you to paint. I got you and your wife. Don't worry about nothing. Just come."
Yeah.
And we did, and it was really nice, and he made a lot of money. He did.
Yep. 2007, 8, 9, 10. During those years, he came up to Tallahassee.
Yes.
And he painted with Curtis, with James Gibson, Al Black, Doretha was there, and several of the other artists were there.
Right.
Mary Ann was there,
Yeah.
and they came back and forth to
Right.
Tallahassee many times, and the goal really was to introduce. At that time, flat screen televisions were really expensive things.
Right.
We got a couple of flat screen TVs and really try to introduce the idea of the Florida Highwaymen story to the students at Florida A&M.
Yes.
And to make them truly appreciate that this is part of their culture and an important story to know. And what we found was the students at Florida State were actually more interested. They really were. As we went to art classes and throughout the area and the malls there, we had setups
Yes.
in the malls and painting setups. So were you part of his painting story? Did you do backgrounds? Like he did backgrounds for Al, obviously.
I did some.
Okay.
I don't remember the paintings that I did, but I remember, helping him out. Because when he started getting, a little bit sick, it's like I would help him out. He said, I need to get these paintings done. So I would go and I would start painting and stuff. And he said, no, you got to blend this and blend that. I said, I'm not an artist. He said, just do what I tell you to do. You'll be fine.
Yeah.
And I remember the first 3 paintings that I helped him with. We went to a show down in Pompano. Those were the first 3 paintings that sold. And he said, see what I told you? He said, if you continue, you'll be a good artist. I said, honey, I can't do this.
He was at the very heart of who he was, his ministry. He was a teacher.
Yes,
he
he
really
was that.
was. And whether he was teaching the Word of God, whether it was his ministry, or whether he was teaching, subtly teaching people life lessons,
Yes.
or how to paint, all of my experiences with him were that of a very patient teacher.
Yes.
And I guess with 9 children, you have to learn that skill.
It's like he knew if someone did something wrong, he already knew who it was. He could tell you who it was because it's like he studied the children,
I remember in the years as he came back to Tallahassee, he had pancreatic cancer, gone through a couple of bouts with that. And at that time, my wife was going through ovarian cancer, and the 2 of them spent lots of time talking about the future and what heaven looked like. What that was going to be like. And, I saw both of them with a sense of great joy and anticipation in their heart, in the hope that they could fix the problem. But as you go through this cycle, you hope, but there's a sense of reality in all of it. There really is a sense of reality in it. And he painted a painting for my wife and gifted it to her.
Okay.
And I remember when he passed in 2015, that I didn't want to tell her that he had passed. I wanted her to think that he was still, still going on. And she asked me in 2017.
Oh, wow.
And, I didn't want to tell her, and I'm like,
Yeah.
he's out there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I just left it at that, and I remember that.
Yeah.
Were there messages, so many messages that he left with me, so many ideas that I got from him, if you would, what message do you think he would want to leave behind? You knew him better than anyone else.
I know one thing, he would want everyone to live their life and be happy, because that's one thing that he did. He would brighten up a room if he came in the room.
He could do that.
He always
could do
brightened
that.
up the room.
For sure.
He would always share stories of his life. Even when he would preach his messages, he always painted a portrait to the people, and they would actually, be looking like he's really an artist, because it's like even through the Word of God, he would paint pictures of them,
Yep.
and they would actually, for them to actually visualize what was actually taking place back in those days. And that's one thing I can say, that he lived this life, and he was very happy. Even the battle with the cancer, he did not allow that to get him down. You know,
Yeah.
he always tried to.
Yeah.
He always tried to make sure everyone was all right, and that was one of the last things that with him. I knew that he was in a lot of pain and he was suffering, and I didn't want him to suffer anymore.
Yeah.
And I told him that I was going to be all right. He was waiting for me to tell him.
Permission.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
that I was going to be all right. And I kind of freaked out, because I said, honey, I said, I love you. And I said, everybody here loves you. I said,
Yeah.
I'm going to be all right. And when I did that, my husband took a deep breath, and he wasn't even talking at that time. He took a deep breath, and when he took the deep breath, the machine, it went straight and flatline, and doctors come running in there, Mrs. Smith, Mrs. Smith. Then it came back up to number 7, and 7 in God is completion. And the Lord knows that he deals with me like with numbers. And so I knew he was gone. It was like he was just waiting for me to say that.
Yeah.
And if I had known, I probably would have said it much sooner,
Yeah.
you know.
As I watched him paint so many times, words came easier to him, ideas came easier to him than painting did. As I saw him paint, painting was work for him.
Yes.
It was not a labor of love. It was a labor to facilitate the ministry. It was something that people wanted from him.
Yes.
And he needed to do to facilitate the ministry. But as you saw him paint, he struggled sometimes with really being able to put the image to board and get the colors just the way he wanted it.
Yeah.
He seemed like he was impatient with himself.
Yes.
And the painting. Did you find that as well?
Yes, and a lot of times he would like to rush and do certain things, but then when he figured out that he was rushing, he needed to stop and sit back and take his time and to do it. And all I know is that I think he took on that the idea of Alfred Hare doing the assembly line, because at home that's what he started doing on the outside. Right. He would have, you know, these boards up, and then he would just go down and want help, you know, to get everything together. And so I was there to, you know, help him do whatever he needed to do. And then when it got to the point where he was having so many shows, he would come to the condo in Orlando and he would paint there. Mm-hmm. And then he'll go down to Doretha. He had a set up at Doretha's house, and he would go and paint there.
Yeah.
You know, just to keep from transporting paintings from one place to the other. So he was, it became a part of his life more than the ministry almost.
Wow.
Yeah.
If you could share with us one story about Carnell that captures who he was as a person and as a minister, what would it be?
There's so many things that I could say about him. Oh wow. One thing is that I would always remember is that we would always travel a lot. Sometime I would get the opportunity to travel with him. And all I can remember, he would always seem like he would get the time wrong or something for the plane. And we'll be running through the airport, and he'll be talking about, come on. And he'll be running. And I remember one time he was running, and he ran into O.J. Simpson. And they were running right next to each other. He said, oh man, can I get one of your autographs? And both of them running. And O.J. gave him an autograph for him and stuff. But it's like he was always running. He was always running.
He had something going. He had a ministry going in Well, Cherry Hill is right next to Haddonfield. So you lived in
Right,
Cherry Hill for a
right.
while. Okay. So I raised all of my children. My kids grew up at the intersection of Grove and Maple
Okay.
in Haddonfield by the
Okay.
dinosaur grave there.
Okay.
Okay. So as you come out of Cherry Hill past, past the mall,
Right.
and the racetrack, and you come into
Right.
Haddonfield,
Right.
those are two very different places.
Yeah.
Okay.
And they are close. They are very close. At one time we did, when we first, let me see, because we lived in Jersey like 1, 2, maybe 3 times. Because the first time we moved to Jersey, we were in Blackwood, yeah. Blackwood or something
Yeah,
like
on the Black
that.
Horse
Yeah.
Pike, yeah.
Yeah, over there. And he wanted to be closer to the church after he started in Philly. And then we lived in Upper Darby. And it's like, I don't know if it was because of the kids, because they hadn't got grown and stuff. And he said, these kids, I got to turn the nest over. They got to get out of here. And then we moved back to Jersey because, he wanted all the kids to get on their own and do their things,
Yeah.
and stuff. So, yeah, it was like, with us, it was.
You did a revival in Haddonfield. Do you remember that?
Yeah, but it might have been more in Camden.
No. You had one in Camden. You had a couple in Camden, okay.
Right.
But Camden was Camden, okay.
Right.
Now Camden is, and I believe to this day, one of the highest crime rate cities in America.
Right.
Camden's rough.
I believe it is. Oh yeah.
So
it is.
I remember a conversation with Carnell, and he says yes. He said I did a ministry in Haddonfield.
Okay.
And
yeah.
And I'm just first meeting him. This is the first encounter.
We did a lot of stuff.
Right.
So.
And he said, and I said, you did a ministry in Haddonfield? I said, I'm from Haddonfield. Mm-hmm. And he had the kindest, most gentle smile on his face. He knew exactly what I was saying.
You know what?
And he said to me,
I remember now. Yeah. Okay.
He said this to me. He says, things have changed since you moved. And that community has changed.
Yeah.
I think at that time, when we lived there was 1.5 African Americans in the entire town. And now that town has changed very much so. And it's, more inclusive community. Yeah.
We did a lot of tent revivals, and I think about it, I kind of remember that now because we were going all the time, and it was like I said, we put that tent up everywhere.
Yeah.
And when I say everywhere, we was from Philly to Camden and Haddonfield to what is this other place? We went to Mississippi. We was in the Carolinas. We was in everywhere.
How did you travel so much with 9 kids? Did the kids raise the kids?
Oh, they changed schools a lot.
They changed schools a lot. I'll bet they did.
They did.
Yeah.
Sometimes they liked it because I remember one time they were out of school. It got so cold in Philly when we were there. It got so cold, and he said, I got to get these kids out of here. He said, it's too much. And he woke up this morning. He said, the Lord said, it's time for us to go where the sun is shining.
He was not a cold weather person.
Right. And so we got in the van, and we had our dog too. We had the dog, and we went back to Florida.
Yeah.
And so when we got to Florida, we stopped in Georgia first, and it started snowing in Georgia. He said, yeah, we got to keep going south. And so we was going to Florida, and we heard this preacher on the radio. He said, I want to go to that service. And so we goes to the service, and this man called us out on all these people. He said, hey, you man of God and that woman of God. He said, the Lord told me to tell you, the snow didn't send you here, but it was him that sent you here. And it was like, wow.
That was nice.
It was like, what? He said, it was the Lord that sent you here. And it's like, I had a lot of family. I'll say I had a lot of family, local here in Florida. But since then, I've had quite a few to pass away and whatnot. But one thing that we did with the kids is like, even when we would be traveling, we would have the hotel rooms, the 2 hotel rooms, we would have ours, and we'd probably put all the kids in one, or we'd get one for the boys and one for the girls, you know, and things like that. But the children really thought we were rich. And I don't know why they thought that, because they dad, he always, one thing he told me, he said,
He was famous.
yeah, he said, if you marry me, he said, you'll never have to work and you will never have to cook if you didn't want to. And believe me, he kept his word. At least maybe like 3 or 4 times a week, we would be out having dinner out somewhere. And I very seldom had to cook. Mm-hmm. And so, like I said, he was a man of his word. He kept his word. And that's why the kids thought we were rich, you know, because they always...
You could afford to go out to eat whenever you wanted.
Yeah, and he always made sure they had and stuff. When it was school time, we would always go up to New York and buy their things, because up in New York, they didn't pay taxes. Yeah. So we would go there, you know, to get school things and stuff for them. Yeah. And he always made sure they had. And they really, sometimes I thought the kids thought he was just a bank, you know, yeah. Because if they went to their dad, asked them for anything, he made sure they had it, you know.
So there we have it. A story about a great man, a great father,
yeah.
An amazing pastor,
yeah,
and a very talented artist. Thank you for joining us for another episode of Highwaymen Social. Look forward to hearing from you and seeing you next week.